Good morning. Welcome to In Touch with the Tri-County. I am your host, Steve Perez. Today, we'll be talking with people who make a difference in our community by helping as an organization or a person. And if you have or know somebody who can do that, please let me know by emailing me at djsteveperez@gmail.com. I would love to hear from them or you if you have an organization helping and making a difference in our community. Today, this morning, I would like to welcome the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. I'd like to introduce Regina Poynter, mental health advocate and walk chair for Ventura County Out of Darkness Community Walk.
Good morning. First of all, thank you for having us this morning. I am a volunteer for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. I am also currently the 2016 walk chair for the Out of Darkness Community Walk for Ventura County.
Oh yeah, you were telling me that. That's happening September 17th at the Constitutional Park in Camarillo.
And I'll share a little bit more about that later. But what I'd like to do now is just give you a little bit of a background about American Foundation for Suicide Prevention.
Please do.
So we started out in 1987. We created our nonprofit status. We started with a group of researchers and concerned family members who wanted to take action against this leading cause of death. We have since grown from a small grassroots network into a movement of over 1 million people across the country.
Wow, that's a lot of people.
Yes, suicide prevention starts with everyone. So we want to reach the whole United States. And our goal is to reduce the annual suicide rate in the United States by 20% by 2025. In order to do that, some of the things that the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention does is research, advocacy, education, and support. We are the largest private funder of suicide prevention research. Our advocacy is done at a local and state and federal level. Our state victories include a mandatory suicide prevention training for educators, which is very important because we need to get that education into our education system. We've helped pass key federal legislation like the Excellence in Mental Health Act, which secured $9 million for community-based mental health and substance use disorder treatment. Our education starts from the children in the schools with our More Than Sad program. Out in the community, we also have a Safe Talk Lives, which helps people learn how to understand the health factors and the environmental factors and the historical factors that are attached to suicide. In this program, they learn how to talk and recognize behavior in individuals that are suffering from a mental health challenge and a potential suicide.
How long have you been a part of this?
Well, it actually just kind of fell in my lap, Steve. A friend of mine from Ventura County called me 2 years ago and said, "Hey, do you know that there's a walk happening in Camarillo? You should come on down." And I said, "Oh, okay." So it was an interest of mine, and I walked down and I met Trouty Winters, who is the LA Regional Director. She represents LA County, Ventura County, Santa Barbara County, and San Luis Obispo County. And it seemed that there were needs for additional volunteer assistance. Just jumped in and started helping out. And once we found out what it was really all about, it really became an interest for me. Last year, I decided to join the walk committee, and I volunteered to be the chair for last year's walk, which we had over 469 walkers. We had approximately 60 teams, and we raised our goal of $25,000, which goes to the research, advocacy, and education and support.
I can tell you guys have really done a lot. What do you think your next step is to do?
One of the things that I feel it's important in lieu of the recent crisis in Orlando is that the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention does have programs support for the LGBT population. And so that's something that we definitely support. We also have a survivor outreach program, which is available to those that have lost a loved one to suicide. 22 veterans lose their lives to suicide every day. And also men in the middle age group, we have a higher rate of suicide in that population. And also there is suicide amongst our elders, our seniors. And so that's something that we reach out to as well and have programs available responsible for that.
So it doesn't matter what age you are, what you do, this can affect you.
Because mental illness is no respecter of person or age or ethnicity or caliber of education. It can affect anybody that is highly educated to someone that has academic challenges.
What can we do to look for signs of someone who has this, or maybe a loved one that we need to look out for?
Well, again, taking our Talk Saves Lives program training, which is, again, free, and it's only a 45-minute program, you learn how to recognize symptoms that an individual might be experiencing. You know, some of the conditions could be depression, it could be substance use, it could mean that they're isolating themselves from their friends and their loved ones. They could have possibly had a previous suicide attempt. They could have a family history of suicide attempts. Really, there's a lot involved in recognizing that and taking this training. What I like to say, Steve, is that someone goes and learns how to save someone's life by taking CPR. I personally believe whether it's mental health first aid training or some of the training that American Foundation for Suicide Prevention offers, it's just as important as taking CPR training. If you know you have a family member that has a heart disease or a kidney disease or some other ailment that you have to learn how to take care of them, it's the same thing. Our brain is an organ, just like our kidneys and just like our heart. And so when we're learning how to take care of a friend or a loved one that might have this medical condition, it's the same thing when it comes to mental illness.
Now, there is a lot of information I really never knew about until you just explained it to me. Like, I definitely should take a CPR class, some type of training that helps me, that I can help somebody, maybe a family member, maybe a friend.
Well, I would like to encourage our listeners they have an interest in suicide awareness and education and prevention and reducing the stigma that it's attached to suicide as well as to mental illness, that they can go on to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention website, which is AFSP.org, and they can learn more about our programs. They can learn more about the research and the advocacy and the support that we do offer. It's important that your listeners write this number down. It's 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-TALK, and that's a 24/7 suicide prevention lifeline.
If you feel like you're going through a situation like this, then pick up the phone and dial. That is a call you definitely need to make. I know I had the same situation with a friend of mine that kind of went through the same situation, was tired, signs of her not wanting to get up, maybe her not wanting to go to work, feeling that everything was closing in. Now, those are kind of signs, right, as well?
Well, those are warning signs of her possibly needing to seek medical professional help. We're not clinicians, we're all volunteers. We're not in a position to diagnose somebody, but with this education, we are in a position to have a warm handoff with that individual. So if you know somebody that is struggling, I would always encourage our volunteers to listen, to be an active listener, because that's what somebody needs when they're feeling completely hopeless and they are in a pit. The only thing they might be able to do is to lift their hand up in hopes that there'll be somebody there. So just being an active listener, never leaving that individual alone, and knowing the resources that are available to help that friend or loved one.
Now, you actually have some people you brought with us today.
Yes, I'm very excited that with me today is Denise and Susie J. They are American Foundation for Suicide Prevention Out of the Darkness Walk volunteers. And they have lived experience and have some wonderful stories that they would like to share with the community.
Well, let's go ahead and talk to Susie J first. Good morning, Susie.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm really glad to be here to share my story and to influence people that there is hope. Without hope, you have nothing. I was around 8 years old when I began to have no hope. I didn't want to be here. I didn't understand why God kept having kids and people kept having kids, because for me, life was so difficult. I did not understand why would people continue if everybody's having such a difficult life. So having said that, I had those thoughts all the way till I was 38. For the first time, I was speaking to a friend, and she says to me that not everybody thinks suicide. And I was completely shocked. I was like, really? She said she'd never thought of suicide. And I was like, are you kidding me? But I have suffered with bipolar all of my life. There was a time where I did attempt suicide, had been in the mental hospital a couple of times. The mental health is just so important to me. It's my mission.
So tell me, what brought you to the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention? What made you go there?
Well, I all along have been working really hard on my recovery and doing well in dealing with my bipolar. So getting involved with American Suicide Prevention, I am very involved and do a lot of volunteer for National Alliance on Mental Illness, and I do a lot of presentations. And growing up, there is a verse in the Bible that says God will use all things for his glory. And that was my one string of hope, because I was brought up in a very religious home. With the desolate and the hopelessness that I had, that was the one thing I thought, well, that's one thing I can hang on to. Having the struggles that I have had, attempting suicide, I feel like now I'm on the other side, and now I'm able to share my story and give other people hope. That's what I'm doing today, and I'm really excited to be doing this, sharing a bigger platform. How I found out about the American Suicide Prevention was, again, I have a friend who invited me to the walk, and it just so happened to be that I could go. I mean, it was like the night before that I found out. I was like, okay, I'll just go. And Regina, we'd been friends, and so we ended up going, and we literally just got there and jumped in. I watched the store selling the T-shirts and, the things that they sell. And I noticed that they really needed some help because they were short volunteers. So I literally jumped in. Do you want me to help? And literally was like, get a T-shirt. I was like very outgoing. So I was able to really reel people in and get excited about the walk. And so that's kind of the beginning. I love sharing. I'm so passionate because I have a nephew who passed away from mental illness, and he is pretty much like one of my children. I don't have children, so I help raise my sister's 3 kids with her. There's a connection there like no other. We watched him begin to show signs of mental illness, although we didn't really know what that was. About 18, he had a great support group. Myself, my husband, my sister's ex-husband, his sister, his brother and her wife, my dad and his wife. So he had an amazing support system, and we were all on board with helping him out. And there were times that he was doing really well. And then there were times where this is the part that because people didn't understand the mental illness, they thought it was just something he was going through and wanted him, just get a job, you'll figure it out. And well, this was a serious mental illness, something that he couldn't control. And so his friends would tell him, you don't need to be on that medication. Your mom's just being overbearing. The very sad thing about this all is watching him, the torment that he went through having the mental illness. At one point, he was in the mental hospital, and they take your phone when you go to the mental hospital. And he came back, and all of his friends, where have you been? And it was more politically correct to tell people that he was in rehab than it was to say I was in a mental institution. That I understand because there is such a strong stigma. But this is the key that I want people to understand is had there been no stigma, he would be here today. Flat out. Because I'll tell you something, I was the one that got the phone call that he had passed away. And I was the one that had to call his friends. And I was very close to his friends, being that I was Auntie Susan. I was the fun aunt. I would take them out teepeeing and have a good time. So they all knew me. They even called me Auntie Susan. And so I would call and I would say, hey, Jennifer, are you sitting down? And where are you at? And I would make sure they were in a place to find out that Joey had died. And the first thing they would say out of their mouth when they found out that he died from taking his life is, I wish I would have known.
And that's the hardest part right there, saying that.
Yeah, I wish I would have known. And that just breaks my heart because that's where I say he would still be here today if he had the support of his friends. That's my biggest reason for being here and talking about it, because I want people to have an understanding. I want to be real, to share my story. People think that there's a certain look to mental illness, and there's not. I almost get a kick out of telling people that I have mental illness because they always look at me like, what? It's just a matter of fact. And I want to be real with people.
It's not sometimes the way the person looks or may dress. It's just that we don't know what they're going through. The situation is.
Yes.
I appreciate you sharing this story with us, Susie J. I know it's kind of difficult because you went through that situation. It's hard, but I know that you're trying to do your best to help others who may be going through this as well.
It is. And I'm so passionate about it. I have been known to talk to strangers. And the more I know about the mental illness, I'm even reach out to the people on the streets who are panhandling. And I actually have a couple of friends, I call them my corner friends. But I go out and reach out to them and share. And I would have never done that had it not be my experience with Joey. But I understand what they're going through now, and I can have more compassion with them. Yeah, I can't talk enough about it. I really do. One interesting story, I was in a coffee shop and I was talking with some friends, and I flat out said, yeah, I have bipolar, da da da. And the lady sitting next to us, she turned her head so hard at me and was so shocked that I said that word out loud about myself. Her eyes got really big, and I just kind of looked at her and smiled. I was like, yeah, I said that out loud. And that's how I want this conversation to be. You know, I want people to be able to talk about it because it's so real. It's 1 in 4 people that are suffering from a mental illness. It's such a serious, serious topic. For instance, if you're at work and you look in your office, 1 in 4 of those people are suffering, and there is help. There's so many things that can be done, and we want to walk with you, and we want to be beside you to assist you in your journey.
Yeah, that's great, because you definitely want to get people together to do something like that because you're helping somebody. Mm-hmm. It's not, you're helping a person who needs to be helped to share something, to talk about it. Because I know that a lot of people don't want to do that. They feel if they talk about it, people will judge them and look at them differently, but you won't. They're there to help you.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention about the suicide hotline. That's not only if you're in crisis and going to try to attempt suicide. It's also to talk to someone. They're on the phone. You don't have to talk to them face to face. They are a listening ear. If you're feeling like you're going to harm yourself, they're such a valuable person to speak to. I really highly recommend you write that phone number down. Get it in your phone so that it's always with you at all times, because that's the first step in getting out of the hopelessness and despair, is getting your hand out there and reaching out, because people don't know that you're hurting unless you're going to share that with him. And once people know, they are going to gather around and they are going to rally you, and there is love and support for you.
Susie J., thank you so much for sharing your personal story with us. I'm Steve Perez. We are in touch with the Tri-County today. We actually have the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention with us. We are also going to talk to one more person, right, Regina?
Yes. Denise is going to share her story with you, and then I'd like to give you a little bit more information.
That would be great. Let's go ahead and talk with Denise. Good morning, Denise.
My name is Denise Cerumen-Cantu. I am actually a survivor of losing a loved one to suicide. How I came about doing this, and really happy to be a part of this community. I was in a very dark place. I lost my brother to suicide 2 years ago. I didn't know what to do. I was in a really dark place. And I went to the website and I found a story. And what caught my eye was this girl had a tattoo of the suicide prevention logo. And I have tattoos, so it caught my eye, and she was young and I wanted to hear her story. So I went online, and it was a video of her talk on how she became a part of it. And I watched it to the end, and it said, if you want to get a hold of this person, email. So I emailed her, not expecting a response back because, it had been many years. And lo and behold, within 24 minutes, she emailed me back. And she said, would you like to talk? And I was nervous because I was like, I don't know this person. I need to speak with somebody, though, because I need to understand what this is all about and understand what suicide means. So I reached out to her, and we had a 2-hour-long conversation. And we had so much in common. She lost her brother. I lost my brother. It was just a lot of things that came into play. And she really, really helped me because I was in a dark place and I was lost, and I didn't know what to do, and I wasn't myself, really, really in a bad place.
I understand.
So sorry.
No, it's okay. I understand. This is emotional for you. I understand.
So she recommended me to go to this website and get involved with the community walks. Talk to people. That the community walks wasn't just for you to go walk. It's for you to be around a community that has gone through the same thing as you have. So I reached out, became part of it. I wasn't supposed to be a part of it. I was supposed to just go and just listen in. And it was it was overwhelming, but it was a big relief off my back. I was able to share my story, and nobody judged me. Nobody looked at me like I was crazy, like, you're talking about suicide. Nobody talks about that. Why are you talking about it? So I felt relieved, and I came to the meeting. We became a part of the committee. I wasn't supposed to be a part of the committee. I was supposed to just go and be a part of the walk to remember my brother.
Mm-hmm.
And then they asked me to share my story. And I was up there in front of 500 people and just losing my brother in a year, talking about how I lost my brother. This is something that is so important to me. I want to erase that stigma because there is a huge stigma about suicide. That word is mum. You don't say it. I think cancer and AIDS and just all these different types of organizations get talked about. But suicide is a very minimal word. You don't say it. You don't talk about it. You don't, just say that word. And I've actually think that here in Ventura County, we have started to change that. And it started with this past walk. I felt so confident. People came up to me and said, you changed my life today. Your story of your brother and of what you've gone through changed my life today. I helped that one person. If you can help that one person, you did your job. And like Susie was saying, I feel like if my brother knew, he would still be here today. He was very young. He was only 31 years old. He had a life ahead of him. It was just sad to see him go. I wish we would have been able to know that the signs were there. I mean, we kind of knew, but we really didn't know. Because again, we don't talk about it. He didn't go to work. He didn't come out of his room. Very quiet. Didn't talk so much. Just the signs were there. The sad thing is, I think he looked himself in the mirror and he just wasn't happy. Wasn't happy about what his life was about. And I think if this would have been so easy at his fingertips like it was for me, he would still be here. Because I think the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention really helped me and saved my life because I was in a dark place and I was thinking of doing the same thing.
Well, at least you found them and they've helped you. You reached out to people. They've reached out to you. Look at you. You're on the positive road now. And I'm glad there is something in this in Ventura County because we need this.
Yeah, there's one thing I want to say is that my family is old school. We're all coming together as one family and we're erasing that stigma. I mean, we had a car show in Oxnard. Car clubs were out there. Car clubs were helping erase the stigma. They were posting it. We have my brother's hair salon that, was involved. Just everybody, my company got involved. It was just to see the community come together and speak about it. We've never had this kind of organization here in Ventura County speak up and be aware. It was amazing. And we're going to make a difference together.
And whatever I can do to help, please let me know, which is part of bringing you on this show today to spread your word about this to somebody who may be listening right now, who may be going through the same thing you went through with your brother or with your nephew or anybody. That's what we're here for, is to help. Now, Regina, maybe you can help me. What are the statistics for suicide rate within Ventura County?
One of the things that is important for Ventura County residents to know is that our suicide rate went up by 30% last year. And so we need to really be foot soldiers in getting out this information. Like I said, primarily to our teens and our middle-aged men, our veterans, and our seniors. Statistically, suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the United States, Steve. Each year, 42,773 Americans lose their life to suicide. For every suicide, 25 attempts. Suicide costs the United States $44 billion annually. So those are just some of the statistics. Men die by suicide 3 times more often than women. On an average, there are 117 suicides per day. Firearms account for almost 50% of all suicides. So there's a lot of work to be done. We've come a long way. As a suicide attempt survivor myself, this is something that is passionate to me. As Susie shared, I was completely hopeless. I was in the depths of quicksand. And my husband held my hope for me until I could find recovery. And now I want to share that message of hope. So I would like to invite the community of Ventura County to join us for our 8th annual American Foundation for Suicide Prevention Out of the Darkness Community Walk, which will be happening on Saturday, September 17th at our beautiful Constitution Park in Camarillo. Registration starts at 7:45 a.m. And if anyone has some additional additional questions or would like to register to walk or to volunteer, they can email me at reginapoynter.afsp@yahoo.com.
Now, can we go ahead and give out that number one more time in case anybody missed it in the beginning? They can have it and put it in their phone now.
Absolutely. The number to call the Suicide Prevention Lifeline is 1-800-273-TALK.
Please, if you need it, add it to your contact or pass it on to somebody who may need it.
Okay, so that number once again is 1-800-273-8255. 1-800-273-8255. Maybe there's someone out there listening right now that is it's struggling themselves or know of a friend or a family member that's struggling.
Mm-hmm.
Don't take another minute to not pick up the phone and call this number.
I'd like to thank Susie J. for her story, Denise for sharing her story, and Regina coming in and sharing the information with us about the walk and about the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention.
Well, thank you, Steve, very